So we're going to try to keep things moving. Our first item is the roll call, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Kinzer for roll call.
Oh, Ms. Martin was distracting me. Ms. Parker? Ms. Martin? Here. Mr. Pennings? Mr. Moore? Mr. Atkinson? Mr. Bates? Mr. Beaver? Ms. Powers? Ms. Morency? Mr. Dudley? We are 100%. Chair Parker?
Thank you, Ms. Kinzer. One last meeting for some of our board members, so it's nice to have everybody here this evening to say goodbye to them. Our next item is Pledge of Allegiance, and to lead us in that, we have some Junior Beta Club members from Whitthorne Middle School, so I will turn it over to Ms. Pogue and to her students to lead us in the pledge, and then a brief moment of silence thereafter. Please stand. All right. On our agenda, we also have a reminder of our mission statement for our board members. Our next item is to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda or any changes? Motion by Mr. Pennings. Second by Mr. Moore. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote.
I vote yes, Ms. Shirley.
All right, that motion passed. Next, we will move on to recognition and announcements. And our first item is to recognize our retiring board members. So if each of those board members that are rolling off, if y'all will join us down there, we have a little something for you. All right, we have 3 retiring board members that we are very sad to lose, but they have given it 4 great years and have dedicated their all to the best interests of Murray County students, and we are very grateful for their service. Later on this evening, I'll let each of the board members that want to say something about everybody have some time. But I know that we've got a long agenda, so we'll save that for the very end. But at this time, I just wanted to recognize each of those board members that are rolling off and thank them very much for their service. We've got the contributions that each of these board members have given in the last 4 years. The list is long. We've got a board chairman, we've got committee chairman, we've got advocates for RTI, advocates for CTE, advocates for all kinds of different things. And so it takes having a diverse group of people with diverse ideas for this board to work. And I think each one of these three individuals has brought that. And so we thank them for their 4 years of service from election in August of 2014, sworn in September of 2014. And we will miss them dearly, and we welcome them back at any time. First, Ms. Joanna Martin, who represents District 3. And next from District 7, David Bates. And last but not least, representing District 9, Carrie Powers. Thank y'all. Next, we've got Mr. Lang, and he has a recognition of a very special and on-time student.
Well, good evening, everyone. We have a student here, a graduate of Maury County Public Schools, that we just want to bring in front of everyone and recognize this evening. We wanted to do this earlier, right after graduation, but for someone who's had 12 school years of perfect attendance, she had a church camp that conflicted with our board meeting. And being a person that doesn't miss anything that she's committed to, she went to her church camp. So tonight, I'd like to recognize Miss Destiny Houston and her family. Come up here, Destiny. And when we talk about family, there's probably one of the reasons why she was able to make it 12 years with perfect attendance. Because it takes everyone. Sometimes it takes a younger brother poking at you in the morning to get you going. Sometimes it takes an auntie or a grandmother or your mother, father, etc., uncles, everybody. So tonight, recognizing this outstanding young lady who started today at Columbia State. Then she's going to transfer in a couple of years. I thought Austin P, but she told me tonight it's going to be TSU. And we'll see where that journey takes her. But one thing I know, she will be on time and present. So I asked her earlier, what do you normally do on a Sunday? Because at some time you have to, see, how do we relax? What do we do? She said, well, we go to church. After church, that's in Columbia, then we go to Culleoka, to my grandmother's house, and have dinner. And I said, you mean your grandmother cooks for everybody? She said, yes. So since it was a family venture to get this young lady through 12 years of high school and not miss a single day, a Sunday of your choice, you won't have to cook. My wife and I will be coming down and we're all going to go to dinner together, okay? So we want to have a family meal because it took a family to get this young lady to 12 years of perfect attendance. So to me, yes, we could have given her a plaque, but I couldn't have given everyone a plaque because they all participated. So we're going to have dinner together, and we'll get that scheduled, okay? thank you for all your hard work that you've done with her and support that you've given her. And I've got to tell you this. She left Columbia Central one day, went over to Withthorn. She had 3 tardies that were marked as absences when she was in middle school. I tell you what, she got that straight. And I said, that's someone that we're going to have to watch and make sure we support, because she's going to do some wonderful things. Congratulations once again. And we'll set that dinner time up. And I want to spend time with the family and learn some of your tricks to getting on time. Thank you.
You done, Carl?
I'm finished.
All right, good deal. Okay.
You may speak.
So members of the board tonight, I am proud to recognize 2 members of our community that own a very prestigious business in our community and have really done a great job over the years supporting Maury County Public Schools. And I need to talk about these 2 people real quick before I ask them to come up. So in 1974, a man by the name of Tony Bastone opened the first McDonald's in Columbia across the street from the hospital, Maury Regional Hospital. At that time, a relationship was formed between McDonald's and Maury County Public Schools. Whenever or whatever the schools needed, McDonald's was always there with a smile and a willingness to help provide food and drinks. As Ms. Shirley put on here, who doesn't remember the orange drink that was always provided for elementary school class parties? Today, that relationship is still carried on by Tony and Gina Wolf. Tony Bastone was Gina's father, and together with the help of her husband, Tony, the generosity in serving the children of Maury County Public Schools continues. The professionalism and hard work of the Bastones is greatly appreciated, and that's why we have asked them here tonight to thank them for another deed well done. So Tony and Gina Wolf, if you'd please come down. Like they don't even want to get up. They don't. We don't want to be known. So what I'm here to reward them tonight is, first off, the Maury County Public Schools Shining Star Award, awarded to Gina and Tony Wolf for your community spirit and outstanding leadership in your donation to Maury County Public Schools. And we're also bestowing upon them the first Maury County Public Schools Unlimited Athletic Pass. So any athletic facility that these 2 want to get into, they are now allowed to any of them just by showing this card. So congratulations. You're very welcome. There you go, guys. You're very welcome, Tony. My pleasure.
Thank you. That's certainly a very well-deserved honor to the Wolves. They do a lot for not just Maury County Public Schools, but for all of our schools, I think, in the area, and so many other worthy nonprofits. And I think the tagline for McDonald's, their most recent commercial, is America's First Job, and I know that they've provided a lot of job opportunities to our students as well, so we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Next, we have another recognition of a special event that occurs in our community, and that is Stuff the Bus. Dr. Woodard?
Good evening, Chair Parker, Dr. Marzak, and members of the board. Tonight I have the pleasure of honoring an employee who has made outstanding contributions to our community and to our schools as well. Ms. Sandra Wilson Martin is the coordinator of an annual event that happens here in Maury County known as Stuff the Bus. Stuff the Bus is an annual back-to-school event, and it's an initiative that provides school supplies for schools and for the students as well. This initiative has now been in existence for about 4 years, and this year the Stuff the Bus campaign raised $20,000. Over the 4-year period, this campaign has raised a total of $56,000 to support students in our school system. Ms. Martin currently teaches at Baker Elementary School, and she's been employed with our system here in Maury County Public Schools for 7 years now. Also, it is important to note that the Stuff the Bus campaign has provided more than 35,000 pencils, 12,000 packs of notebook paper, 5,000 packs of magic markers for students, 7,000 packs of crayons, and over 10,000 glue sticks, and 2,000 composition books and spiral notebooks for students as well. This is a massive undertaking. It is a great event in our community, and this year I had the opportunity to participate in that. It is a mega undertaking, and it could not be done without a committee. So Ms. Martin would also like to commend the folks that helped her pull this off, and that would be Julie Wolliver from Whitthorne Middle School, Julie Ackley, who is also at Whitthorne Middle School. This would not be possible without Carolyn Jones, who was at Mount Pleasant Elementary, Jessie Hay from Mount Pleasant Elementary, Beth Eastep, Mount Pleasant Elementary, Jennifer Webb from Hampshire Unit, and also Lindsay Boshears from Highland Park Elementary School. Each teacher that was mentioned tonight will also receive a letter of commendation for their exemplary service here in Maury County Public Schools. Tonight, please help me salute and honor Ms. Sandra Wilson Martin. I'd like to ask a couple of board members if you would come down and stand with Ms. Martin in the photo. Dr. Marzak, Ms. Parker, if you stand for the photo. Tommy's going to grab Kim. Sorry about the delay. And in addition to the award that she received, she will also receive a commendation for exemplary service here in Maury County Public Schools as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, for all that you do for our students through that event, and I know what you do in your classroom, so we appreciate it a great deal. Now we have some special students here. Looks like the Joseph Brown Elementary School Bionic Bears are here for a demonstration for us for the robotics team.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ms. Ellison. I am the librarian at Joseph Brown Elementary School, and I'd like to introduce you to a great group of students. This is the JBS Bionic Bears. Garrison?
Hello, my name is Garrison. This is Max. Hello, my name is Spider. Hello, my name is Olivia. Hi, my name is Mia. Hi, my name is Carly.
Okay. This is the only elementary robotic program in the county to my knowledge. I started this program in spring of 2017. This is our second year with these students. All of the robots that are built on the table were made by the students. We are a Crayola school, so I'd like to first show you the prototypes that these students have made. So who would like to go first? Okay.
So this is a car that I built from motors, circuits, and wheels.
That was from a robotic kit that was made to draw a drawing robot. And the students were challenged to change a drawing robot using their imagination and be able to convert it into something that would race. And we did have races with these. And was it yours or Olivia's that won? Which one won? Olivia won. Garrison was second place. So you got it on the wrong side, baby. I didn't say they move very fast, but they do move. Okay? All right, next, please. Who's next?
This is a girl with her robotic arm and it solves the problem of the plastic bag problem in motion. The robotic arm goes down and takes all of the plastic bags off the surface.
We are a Crayola school, so some of our prototypes this year were made with the Crayola modeling clay. All right, next.
Another car, this exact same as Garrison's, except mine won and it's way faster than his. Made it with wheels, motors, switches, gears.
Okay. Next.
Mine is a security camera disguised as a you can fold it as a little thing. It can be as a disguise. It can, if you leave it home, it turns on by itself. It just watches the house while you're gone.
Okay. Got one more. Who's the other one? Is that yours? Okay. All right. I would like to take just a minute and show you some of our videos over the last year. This is a science. It's a STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math program. We meet once a week on Tuesday afternoons from 3:30 to 4:30. These children, in addition to coming in on their regular weekly meetings, they come in before school as early as 7:30 in the morning. I open up my library so they can come in and build robots. They also give up recess. And we also have lunch together once a week. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. These are just some of our drawings. The gentleman here beside me is our high school. You're a sophomore. High school sophomore. He's also my grandson. His name is Theron Anderson, and Theron helped me last year and this year with our robotics program. I've also offered a invitation to Columbia Central and Mount Pleasant mechatronics students. If they would like to earn their Hope Hours, then they can come and help with our students. The children that you're seeing now most of those were last year's students. They are now 5th graders at Whitthorne Middle School. All of my students are A students. They're high math, science, and reading. They had to apply with a 2-page application to be selected as one of our 6 robotic members. That roller coaster that they've got there was built as a 4-foot roller coaster. Our students also taught with that. They taught force, motion, gravity to 1st graders in an entire class. I stood back and watched. The teacher would bring their class in, and they did everything on it. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. The children take the pictures for our Facebook and our Twitter page, and they also work on those as well. When we had our spring program, the kids helped write the program. They performed the program, and they also did the PowerPoints for the program. Most of the pictures that are in this presentation right now were taken by one of the students. That is their robot, their roller coaster that they taught with. Those are some of our robots that we built last year. The robotics program also teaches the 4 C's of education: create, communicate, creative thinking, and collaboration. Our students have read to 2nd graders. This is Garrison reading. We had the 4th graders that actually got to help select the 3rd graders that would follow with them. Not only did they help select this group here, they also were the ones that taught them about circuits, prototypes, and the basics of robotics. I do a hands-off approach, and they come to me if they have a problem. There's those racing bots that we were talking about. We did have races, and this is when Garrison and Olivia, the 2 3rd graders, beat the 4th graders even. This was our trip that we took to Murray Regional Hospital. We were the only elementary school group of kids that was able not only to see the Da Vinci surgical robot, they actually got to put the ports and the cameras in and operate the Da Vinci. That's my combined 3rd and 4th grade group at the end of the school year. In addition to going there, we also, last May, did a demonstration for the county commissioners. This is Theron Anderson. As I said, he was one of our helpers. He helped us when we got stuck with some of the electronics. Not only did they teach each other, these students also taught their peers. These are using the circuit kits, and our guys are actually teaching other 3rd and 4th graders during their specialty time how to do circuits. When our parents came, we also taught our parents what they were doing and explained circuits and robotics to their parents and grandparents. Another thing we did last year is I took the entire 4th grade to Columbia Central High School, which we got to work with Mr. Michaels and tour the Columbia Mechatronics program. These pictures here were taken the first of the school year. Shows the teamwork the kids are working on. We have new bots that we're working on now. The Columbia Breakfast Rotary was one of our sponsors this year, and the Kiwanis Club as well were sponsors to our club. We have other sponsors in the work, but they're not finished yet, so we're still working. All right, now for the important thing. Would you like to show us your bots? These bots are, they're all mechanoid robots, which if you've ever used the erector sets, thank you, Theron, the erector sets, they are the newest version of the erector sets. The only difference is they have a computer brain, and they are AI, they are learning robots. So, Garrison, will you show us Max?
So tell me a joke. Tell me a fun fact.
Max is a artificial intelligence. He's a learning robot. The more Garrison works with him, the more he learns. He learns and Max learns. Okay. Now, Olivia and Haley will show us our spider. Do what?
There's no water.
Um,
Is there?
I don't think we've got water in him. He does attack, and when he attacks, he sprays water on you. Okay. The next one I would like to see is Mechano. Mechano also is an AI. Both Mechano and Max are controlled by an iPad. They're controlled by programming, and they're also controlled by voice. They can tell jokes. They tell fun facts. They play games. They dance with you. We even had Max was even doing dabs earlier. So, all right. Just hold him up. Switch also is a learning robot. He's actually the smaller of the group, but he does walk. He walks very wiggly. He has a mind on his own, but he is a learning robot as well. So these are some of our robots. We'd like one more minute of your time because we're in art school. So we have a rap for you. We'd like to share a rap with you. All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
J-B-E-S. J-B-E-S. Just from bears, it's not ironic. 21st century, the bears are bionic. Now we write code, develop prototypes. Bionic bear squad up, get hype. Now it's our turn. I know we will learn to build robots that on the box we don't stop. Connect Bluetooth, circuit boards will convert. Leads, measures, motors, make it work. J-B-E-S. J-B-E-S. Bionic bears are fresh. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Madam Chair, if I could address the group real quick. What she did not tell you is that she funded this equipment herself. I heard her say she has sponsors, but she funded this herself. And so she's to be commended for what she's done to progress the learning in the county. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pravetti, and thank you to all the students for sharing your robots with us. Do any of the board members, do y'all have any questions for any of the students about their thoughts?
Chair
Yes,
Parker,
Ms. Martin?
I am a Brown School Bear alumni, and I'm very, very proud of y'all. I wish we had stuff like this when I was there. I was on the jump rope team, but nothing like this. And so congratulations. This is amazing. They're going to be, I mean, if you're doing this in elementary school, I can't even imagine where we're going from there. So congratulations.
Well, I don't know how anybody follows that up, but luckily that is Mr. Huebner's responsibility. Murray County Education Association.
And Sandra got to lead before. I met Sandra Wilson in 2003. She just graduated from Spring Hill High, and I was just starting in the district. And she told me then I knew we had an up-and-comer because she told me she was going to be the Commissioner of Education someday. And I've held her to that, but I don't think she wants to do that now. But there is a new governor taking place somewhere in the next few months, so we'll give them a call and see if they can hire, because I don't, that's a political job, as we know as well. And admire Dr. McQueen, but I don't know if they'll survive. They're an outstanding couple. Cord also has contributed much to the county. And to me, when they come in the room, they light the room like a Christmas tree. They're amazing people. So I want to thank Bedelia, too, for what she's done with those kids. I want Zach to pass that. Former student of mine, history. He did well last year. Appreciate it. He didn't know he was going to do this. We are here to Murray County Education Association, Dr. Marzak, Ms. Parker, and the rest of the board in support of Dr. Marzak's letter to Governor Haslam and Education Commissioner McQueen. And there's some information there that since 2015, TEA, Tennessee Education Association, which it's like state, local. Well, they're the state organization. We're the local. They have taken a stand on this, and I'm just going to read you these few paragraphs. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they have advocated eliminating high-stakes decisions based on year-end standardized test scores. Research shows there are better, more inclusive means of improving teaching practice and student outcomes than penalties. Assessments should be used to guide work with students and improve teaching, not as a punitive measure against educators, students, and schools. State testing failures for the past 3 years show TEA is right. In each year, testing failures prompted the General Assembly, with TEA organizing, to suspend test score penalties in state law. Yet without testing penalties or a functioning and valid state testing system, demonstrable progress has happened in the two most important student outcomes, on-time graduation and college career readiness, which obviously, we're very much in support of in this county, central offices as well. This is what we've been working on. Tennessee's graduation rate is the highest on record and has improved each year during state testing failures. ACT scores have also improved. Students achieved a 20.1 overall ACT composite score in 2017, up from 19.9 in 2016 and 19.8 2015, moving us toward the goal of 21. The ACT benchmark of college readiness. Again, this progress happened during state testing failures. After years of failure, confidence and trust in the state testing system is at an all-time low. There are calls to suspend testing completely and allow a reset, recognizing an entire generation of students have known nothing but glitches and disappointment. It is clear the administration and department, we're talking not about our central office, but the state, are unwilling to stop testing, and there is little opportunity for a special session this year to change the law to halt the system. As a result, as it stands now, testing will happen this year. And then I give a series of steps here that TEA has taken, and you can read that on your own. Dr. Marzak, the letter's well written. We endorse it and hope the board will act upon that and heartily support it. I've also given you information that has to do with, it was an article that ran in the New York Times just the other day, and it's looking what we deal with. It's looking at testing issues. This is Pearson. They are the giant. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And some of the issues people have had, scholars and others, where they've been sent some of those questions and how they could come up with 3 of the 4 answers. Now, that happened to me last year in the practice U.S. history and, of course, tests. So I don't get to see the real one because history teachers can't go in there. But helping monitor the practice, I noticed they had students coming up to me, several, and they said, Mr. Huebner, this could be, there was 4 answers, this could be any of these 3. And knowing that they could, it had to do with the Bush-Gore election of 2000. And I looked at it, took some others, and I said, he's right. We're history teachers. and 3 of the 4 could be correct. And I didn't want them to fail, so I said, hey, just do your best. It's difficult, but try your best. But I realized we were facing a fundamental problem with this major question they had to analyze and answer 5 multiple choice questions on it. So I knew then, if this is just the practice, what are we dealing with in the main test that I can't see for obvious reasons? So I want you to look at that, read that article. It can be entertaining at times in a sad way because it shares with you some of the situations we deal with as teachers. I've talked many times to Katie Patterson, who's the state social studies coordinator, because that's what I teach. She's an excellent resource, great lady, and we're just asking for more input on who writes these questions, because the kids come to us and sometimes and say, you know, this wasn't on there about the Intercontinental Railroad, and you said it was really important. Or the Homestead Act, which only nation on earth that gave out so much free land. What an amazing thing to do. So you go, wow, did I teach it wrong? No, that's in the standards, even in the 8th grade standards of U.S. history. So that's something we're going to be challenging them to do as well, to come back, look at that, and see if we can come up with a better EOC. So again, MCA endorses this letter. Hope you'll vote on it and improve it. And we too at MCA wants to thank Ms. Powers, Ms. Martin, and Mr. Bates for their service. We appreciate. And I've said before, even when we disagree with some things with the board, I say this many times, we appreciate your service. It is not a job I'd want to have, especially the late night hours. So thank you very much, all right? Thank you, Dr. Marzak, for the letter.
Thank you, Mr. Huebner. Do we have anyone signed up on our public delegation roster? Bring that forward. All right, we have two people signed up to speak during our public delegation section. I'll just remind each of y'all, come to the microphone, and then please state your name, your address, and then you'll have 5 minutes to speak as per our policy. So our first person is Mr. Eric Pravetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Eric Pravetti. I live at 101 Casey Valley Drive here in Columbia, Tennessee. I represent the County Commission on the 2nd District, one of 2 commissioners. And simply, I just came this evening to pay my respects to Ms. Martin, Mr. Bates, and Ms. Powers for your service. Thank you for the hours that you have put in. I hope to see you all much. You're in Spring Hill, so I won't see you much at all, but perhaps. But just thank you for what you did, the long hours you've put in, and it's been an honor to serve with you. And that's pretty much all I had. I just wanted to come pay my respects this evening, so thank you very much again.
Thank you for doing that, Mr. Pravetti. We know how many long hours you have to put in, so I think we all commiserate together sometimes, but it is very, very nice of you to come and recognize the incredible work that those 3 board members have put in for the last 4 years. Next, we have Misty Severs. Is that right? Severs? All right.
I'm Misty Severs. I live at 402 Wahila Way in Columbia. And I have now been a resident for over a year, since I think the last time I saw you. I'm here again on behalf of McDowell Elementary. I know we're not on the agenda, but I've got a sweet little kindergartner there now, and I also have a 3rd grader. And there's also still 300 plus students at McDowell. So we're still here. We're still in dire need of a safe, newer school. It was voted on last spring by this board that we do not want to combine McDowell with Baker Elementary or any other elementary school. I believe, now I don't know about this because it wasn't voted on, but I believe it's the wishes of this board as a majority. I know there are several people that represent different pieces of the county or live in different pieces of the county that have different ideas, but we don't want to be rezoned. And I believe that that's the wishes of the majority of this board as well. We don't want to be broken up into other schools. It's also been voted on by this board, these people, minus maybe some people that weren't here previously, that it's McDowell's turn to be rebuilt. We've waited. We're 94-ish years old, which I lived next door to a Murray County educator who passed away last year, Leah Hayes. her kids went to that school, and she remembers that school when it was very new. Unfortunately, when that went up to the county commission last time by this board, voted by majority, it could not be approved as written. I think we sent it up for more money than what there was. So what I'm asking for you guys, I'm not coming here today. Obviously, there's not a big crowd. There's not a reporter that's going to take a really awkward video of me again, thankfully. But what I'm asking is for the commitment of this board to continue with your commitment to progress to rebuild McDowell Elementary. Let's send up a request for $1 million to the county commission to get this design done so that we can move forward. There are 330-ish children at McDowell Elementary. 80% of them live in poverty. 80%. Now, I don't know about you. My children don't live in poverty, thankfully, but I was raised in poverty. And I fought and I clawed, and I had educators like what we have at McDowell. We are so blessed with amazing educators and amazing leadership, an amazing board that sees and helps us to get federal funding. I know there are several of you on this board, and it may be easy to check out because I watched. There's so many of you retiring, but there's a lot of you staying. You guys have voted on this as a majority already. Your word is already spoken. For those of you leaving the board, please continue the work that you started. Let's finish it before you leave. Don't leave us, McDowell parents and supporters, to have to start over with these new board members, because we're going to have our own uphill battle. But let's send for the design. Let's show a commitment. And for you people that are still on the board, thank you, because this is not a job I want. I know the emails that I've sent, and I know the emails that I have asked my fellow McDowell parents and McDowell supporters to send. So I can't imagine the number of emails that you get. Mean emails, anger emails, thank you emails, whatever they may be. But guys, let's finish what we started. Let's finish, and let's show this county that we're going to do this, and we're going to take care of our schools, and we're going to do it one at a time. And why not start with the patriarch of the schools? Let's start with McDowell Elementary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Severs. Any board members have any comments? All right. Thank you all for coming this evening and speaking to us on those two topics. Next, I don't believe we have any staff reporting, so we'll move on to consent items. Are there any items anybody wants removed from the consent items? Do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion does pass. We are now moving on to new business. First item under instruction is the TN Ready EOC percentage recommendation, which per our policy is 15% of the student's grade for the 2018-2019 school year. We had some discussion at the board meeting, so we do need a motion. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. Any further discussion? Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion did pass. We'll move on to superintendent letter regarding testing. That was presented at the end of our board work session. Motion to approve the letter to be sent to the commissioner. Okay. Motion by Mr. Pennings and a second by Mr. Moore. So the motion would be to approve the letter as presented by Dr. Marzak. Mr. Moore?
And just to clarify, that would be from all of us, the board and the superintendent as a whole, correct?
It can be. If you want to delegate Ms. Parker to sign as the representative of the board, or I can make areas for every board member to sign.
My intention, I mean, if she wants to represent, I think my intention during the discussion, I think that's what we discussed, was to have to represent the board and the superintendent. And by the way, I do want to speak to MCA. I appreciate, Mr. Huebner, I know you're here. I appreciate you guys speaking up about this. I'm glad that everyone is on board with us sending a message to the state that they've really messed this up. It may not mean much in the grand scope of things, but I am glad to see that all of us are pulling the same direction on this, that this is what's best for the kids.
So, Mr. Pennings, just to clarify, are you wanting to approve the letter from the board and the superintendent? Are you okay with that?
I wanted to go from Dr. Marzak and the board and have you sign for the board.
Okay. All right. And then, Mr. Moore, you're okay with the way that's phrased? We good, Shirley? Any discussion on this? All right. Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote. All right, that motion does pass. We'll move on to our finance section. We have some preliminaries for June of 2018. We didn't have a chance to talk about this at the board work session, so I'll open up the floor. And if anyone has any questions for Ms. Gagliano, she's available. Ms. Kinzer, you look ready to pounce.
I do have some questions. Looking for not seeing any financials since May, and I went on the county commission website, Ms. Gagliano, and if any of you want to do that, it's page 28 of their, and it's the source of all their revenues and the amount in each one. Our balance was, June the 30th was in fund balance was $9,826,721.12. July 31st, it was $4,881,960.43. My question, and I see in the finance that you gave us that you showed a fund balance at the end of that, I think next to the last page on that financial statement, that fund balance was about $4,000,002 something. I'm not looking at it right this minute, so I don't have the exact figures. You had told us that fund balance was going to be at $63,000 at the end of June. I'm just really a little confused because we really sweated blood trying to do a budget, and we cut out a lot of really worthy programs, and staff and all had to make really deep cuts, and so I really want a clear picture of what fund balance is. Is it what's being reported to the commission where the funds are housed? Is that correct? Do we have money in fund balance that we didn't know we had? We don't have a July statement, so I don't know what that is. I just have to go by their July statement that shows $4,881,000, so forth. So that my question is, what is fund balance right now?
Ones that were not. As far as fund balance, the last figure I had was from May, and the estimates show that it was going to be
So can we have a final, can we have a final what we have in the fund balance for the next meeting, not an estimate, actual what we have in the fund balance? Can we have that at the next meeting?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Yes.
My concern, Ms. Gagliano, is that what's being reported on the commission website, and once again, I can send the picture I made of it to the board members if you want, but it's page 28 of that, where all the county fund balances are. And those aren't estimates, those are actuals. And it showed a fund balance at the end of July of $4,881,000 something. I won't even go through those figures, but I'm like Mr. Pennings, I don't know how this board can start spending money until we know where we are and we know what the situation is. And we need an accurate accounting of that.
Well, you're not spending fund balance, you're spending a budget that you approved for FY 19. So fund balance is not part of the FY 19 picture as far as allowing people to begin to spend their budgets.
Yes, yeah, Ms. Kent. We don't have any recommendations to spend any money out of fund balance. So everything that's, with the information that I sent out Friday afternoon, everything tonight that's on the board agenda are things that the departments budgeted in the FY19 budget and were approved through the budgeting process. Until we find out when the books close what our actual fund balance numbers are, then we need to begin to have the discussion of, are there things that the board does want to do with one-time money? Because we know this money won't be reoccurring. And if they are, what are those things that you would like to do? Do you want to hold it? Do you want to spend it? So we need to have those discussions. But please send that information on, and then Ms. Gagliano can double-check with Mr. Laconin.
I will do that, and I understand the difference in fund balance, I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that my concern is a general concern about our finances.
Yes, ma'am.
Where we are going forward, and the information that the board needs to have. We probably didn't have all the information we needed when we worked on many, many nights and weeks and months and a lot of really things that I never dreamed that I'd have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're in August, and we still haven't gotten any real figures and know exactly where we are. I understand fund balance, I know that all the things on here are budgeted. I'm okay with that.
Yes, ma'am.
But I am not okay that we every month have to have a discussion about finances. I am not okay with that. So, Ms. Gagliano, I know she's had some health problems, and I'm sorry for that. But we have got to get a handle on this. We've got to know what we have, and we've got to know what we're going to do going forward so we can move this county forward. We gave up some huge programs. Yes, ma'am, excuse me.
Yeah, excuse me, I just wanted to say that, I appreciate, what you said about my health, but it really doesn't have anything to do with this. This is totally an accounting thing that, I can't give you the figure until those adjustments are made. And any figures that Mr. Luconin has come from us. So, it's very typical at the end of the year until you get the books closed that you do not provide a financial statement. I can tell you though that we watched it every month up until that end of the year, and that if we look at how the revenues came in, and we did not overspend. So as we look at, as we close the year, and I'm able to tell you what the fund balance is, I'm able to tell you what contributed to building the fund balance. If that is in fact the case, then we're going to need to look at each of the expenditure accounts that were underspent, and the persons that were in charge of those budgets can give a recollection of why the budget was underspent and possibly why that was not known at the time that we were building the next year's budget. Because everything was thought to be very close to what was budgeted in FY
Well, we're losing 3 good board members here tonight, and I've been here 10 years. I have never went for a period of 2 and 3 months without a financial report in the 9 years, 11 months, and 29 days I've been on the board up to today. Never went this long without a financial report. And it's hard for us to plan, and we sweat bullets cutting this budget. And the county says we have $4 million in the fund balance. I don't know if county commissioner comes up to me and says, why aren't you doing this? You got $4 million in the fund balance. I say, well, so you say. We need an accurate financial report once a month like we've had in the past. And I know we've had problems in the past, but we need the financial report so we know what we are doing.
Mr. Dudley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just want to reemphasize what my fellow commissioners, we've heard reason after reason for the past several months as to why we can't get accurate financial figures. It's been blamed on the past budget director or financial director. We've heard all kinds of reasons. We haven't been able to close the books, and with this and that, and month after month we hear reasons as to why we can't have accurate figures. I'm tired of waiting. I'm expecting next month. By then, according to everybody I've talked to, the books will be closed, and by then we should have accurate financial figures for the school system. And I really don't want to hear excuses next month as to why we don't have accurate figures. And so I'm getting very disgusted, and as Mr. Penning said, we can't do our job without accurate figures, and so I'm expecting us to have those figures, and so I really don't want to hear a lot of excuses next month.
Dr. Marzak?
Sure. So, Mr. Pennings and Mr. Dudley, so I went back to last year's board meetings. You received June's financials and July's, but in August there was no financial report. So this year you're receiving June's in August, and they'll be monthly from here on out throughout the remainder of the year. So there's only a slip of 1 month, which was not having June's and July's, but having June's rather in August. So they will be, once the book closes in on Wednesday, they'll be consistent every month from here on out.
But we haven't had accurate. What we have had, what we've listened to Dr. Marzak for the last 3 months at least, is estimates. I can't work. I'm going to estimate that, oh, well, I'm going to have $1,000 in my checking account this month. Whoops, I missed 2 days' work. I got $700. I can't run my checking account on that, and this board can't run the school system on estimates. We need factual, exact, correct amounts of what we have.
Excuse me. I could send you the printout at June, but because of the way you have the payroll set up, it would have been inaccurate. So I thought it was better to wait until we had accurate figures. Because of the way you're crossing the school years with your payroll set up, it makes the July report not accurate until after payrolls for August, or for the July payrolls are run. It makes June not accurate until that happens. So that's the reason for the delay. If you had a regular budget, the regular school year set up where your payroll was within the fiscal year, then that's a different story.
Dr. Marzak, it sounds like that, I mean, we as a board are not responsible for payroll and contracts and all that. That's stuff that is done internally in your department.
Yes.
So it sounds like there's some information here that we're getting that maybe the reason why we're not getting accurate information is because of some other things on the back end. Can you address that so that next year we can continue to get our information, not estimates?
Yeah, that's one of the things that Ms. Gagliano and I have talked about. Is one of the things when she came on that she noticed is the way our 12-month payroll is set up. We would like to get it to a point where it actually ends on June 30th versus us having to take July payroll and book it back into June. Karen, what did you say that figure was to get that? Was that about 4.5 million to make that happen?
Yeah, about 4.8.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's something we're working on to
So-
hopefully try to get to at some point.
Okay. Do you have a plan for how to get there that you can bring back to us? I mean, because if we get to May and we haven't executed a plan, or your office hasn't executed a plan,
Yes.
we're going to be in the exact same situation. So what's your timeline for addressing this?
Well, the key thing that we've talked about right now is that it all comes down to finances, because it takes about $4.8 million in order to make that happen. So once the books close out, once we know where the financials are, once we know where we sit and have those additional financials available to us, we'll know the timeline within which we can do that. So it all depends at this point on the books closing on Wednesday.
So to know that, don't you also have to know, I mean, when you talk about financials, you don't just talk about expenses, you talk about revenue too. The information that we were given tonight does not include a revenue report. Do you?
No, it doesn't. No, that's only tentative preliminary expenditures through the month of June. Yes.
So how are you tracking this if you're not looking at the revenue side as well as the expense side?
Well, that's Ms. Gagliano and I are doing both, and so we'll
But
know
you don't
once we
think that
get
the
to that
board
point.
wants to do that?
Revenue, you mean revenue to date, where the revenue has been? If those are kind of things that the board wants to know. So one of the things that I sent out on Friday is if you have any questions, please email this to me. I'd be more than happy to get those questions to you and get that information to you. So what we can do is Ms. Gagliano, I think, can we get together sometime this week and get updated revenue information to the board as well? Is that possible?
Yeah, I can run a report and send it out to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Marchak, this really, I mean, we're relying upon you, I don't know what button to push in Skyward to get the information.
No,
I'm relying upon,
she does. Yes.
I'm relying upon you as our only employee directly
Yes, ma'am.
to make sure that that happens.
Yes.
And I don't see us getting the information that we need. And I don't know, you can say that she knows which button to push, but at the end of the day, I can only look to you to tell me what that information is. And I don't think it should be necessarily the board thinks that we need this. We've always gotten a certain amount of information. We've always gotten revenue information. We've always gotten expenditure information. We've always gotten, I think, even estimated fund balance pretty much every month. We're not getting those things, and we haven't been getting those things. And
The last month was June, yes.
Well, but even going back to what Ms. Kinzer's point is, we made a lot of really steep cuts based off of projections that based on this, are we going to have $4 million in adjustments?
What I'm saying is, if the budget, the expenditures, the report that you have before you tonight shows the under expenditure of expenditure, so that money will go to fund balance.
Correct.
Whatever that figure ends up being, if your fund balance is more, that is something like Dr. Mars had referred to as far as having a discussion about how you want to handle that. It's a good thing that you did not spend it in building FY19 at this point in time, because if you are going to try to fix the payroll issue, you're going to need money to do that. So that will be one of the items in the mix of discussion about use of extra fund balance if you feel like you do have extra fund balance. Again, I go back to you should have between 8 and 10% of your operating expenditures in fund balance. That will give you the correct cash flow. That would probably even allow you to fix your payroll issue. So these are discussions that will come when the books close and we have an exact figure for you, so you can make plans based on factual information.
Agreed. And I think that's what everybody wants is just factual information. But I do think that if there was something in somebody's head that we were potentially going to use this for payroll, that was never communicated to us during the budgeting process. And while that may be a worthy use of fund balance potentially, I don't know that that's what this board has decided that they want to use that on. So I just feel like there's some steps that are going into play before.
Not really, because at the time we built the budget, according to all of the individuals who are responsible for their different portions of the budget, there wasn't really anyone that came forward and said that they were greatly be underspending their budget for FY18. So we had no idea that there would be an increase to fund balance above what the projections for revenue were. On the expenditure side, we assumed that, except for the technology area where you held back on purchasing new equipment, that was one thing that we made that decision while you were going through all of your cuts. So again, my goal is to give you accurate information that you can make a solid decision on, whether it's using extra fund balance for one-time expenditures, whether it's building the fund balance, or whether it's letting the fund balance sit there so that you can fix a potential payroll problem down the road. Dr. Marzek and I had conversations during this fiscal year about this payroll issue and about the impact that it makes on financials. And we felt that there were so many things going on this year that needed to be fixed and corrected that we didn't want to bring fixing this payroll issue into the mix, and we really didn't have the money anyway. So we had it on our radar to talk about for this next year as a goal.
Mr. Bates?
I mean, I understand, things can come up and we want to give things a little bit more time to try to get things finalized. But I do think that we as a board, we have to be on a regular system. We have to be getting these reports on a regular basis, because I'm concerned that if any given month, if we think, well, I'm 90% there, let me put that off till the next month, and then it just snowballs from there. And then we end up accumulating more issues when we're not on top of things on a monthly basis. And I know that there's been a tough, some things to try to get up to date, but I think going forward, I just don't think that there's any choice. To me, I mean, I know that we're having this discussion. This is not a choice for me as a board member, that we get monthly reports on a monthly basis. Every business that is run gets monthly reports, any business of any size. On a monthly basis, they get a statement of their revenue, they get a statement of their expenditures. They're on top of that on a monthly basis. There's no businesses out there that say, oh, you take that month off, or I'm a little bit behind. Otherwise, that business looks for another accountant, because we've got to have these things on a monthly basis. So I just think, let's going forward, it just needs to be happening. And I think going back to some of the discussion we had at the work session, this is just something for the board to think about. When this happens, like with Congress, sometimes senators put a hold on nominations when they're not getting the information that they need. May not really, but it's to get the information that they need from the administration. So I personally, as a board member, if I'm not getting information on a monthly basis, then I'm not going to consider any amendments going forward until we get that information. And that's going to be on administration to get those things done in a timely manner. And I understand things are difficult, but that is an expectation. It just has to get done.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Chair Parker. I definitely want to ditto everybody and just say that with new board members coming in, thankfully, it's just 3 of us leaving, and the rest of you guys are here and have the background knowledge of what all has been going on. But you gave us a great synopsis of what's on the radar for you and Dr. Marzak. But that's not on the radar for everybody else if we don't have the communication. So I feel like we've got a communication issue, and we've had a communication issue. So with trust being built back, because of our financial issues, we can't have a communication issue, okay? So y'all can't be on the radar having discussions on your own. You can't. And you can't go, as we said, months without relaying information, even if it's just to say, this is the numbers that I have, and this is, basically the summary that you just gave us. If we were all going to go and buy something, we wouldn't reasonably and logically say, you know what, I've got an account over at Regions, but I'm not going to worry about that. We're not going to talk about that now. That doesn't make any sense. So in order to make sound decisions, you have to have all the information. And just going forth with the new people that are coming in, because they're going to be green to a lot of situations, I really think it's going to be imperative from here on out with those new people coming in to be really, really just down to the wire, to be real minute on everything that's going on, because otherwise it seems really, really shady, and I hate to use that word, but it seems really shady, and it just doesn't seem as transparent or as clear as it could be. And as David says, it's really hard to make those decisions if you just don't know, and I think that's where we are. We just don't know. So,
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Chair Parker, if I could ask that for the next work session, if we could go back, I guess, in time and have documents ready for when we used to get all of the reports we used to get. If we could use that as our starting point, and I would ask board members to be ready to have any additional information they want to see every month, and we simply make an expectation that we're going to see those reports in the format that we're, as a board, agree on, and we get that every month. I think that's just set a clear expectation that that's what we want to see. I know we've seen various reports throughout the last 4 years I've been on here. Some of it is probably less useful than other reports, so I would definitely like to have some discussion with my fellow board members of what we want to see that is clearly communicating what we expect to be able to find on there, not just 300 pages of numbers that we're not really sure what we're looking at. So I would think that would be a good discussion to have at the next work session, and we just set that expectation and it's there every month.
Just one other thing I just wanted to point out. I do think sometimes there's confusion when we look at these fund balances. I think sometimes some of the information that the commissioners are looking at is more looking at it like a cash balance type thing. So it's like, you know, my checking account, you know, before I've paid my house payment, looks like I got more money, you know. So I've got a good, you know, balance, but I know that I've got to pay that. So it's already spoken for. So, you know, and that's what I don't know, Ms. Kinzer, you know, what information that you're looking at. But the point is to avoid confusion and to make sure that we're getting good, accurate information, we've got to have accurate reports, because we're always going to run into that. We're going to have somebody that's going to look at these reports and they're going to misunderstand something and think, oh, well, you've got that money. Maybe we don't really have the money because we know that these bills are coming in. We really don't have that much available. But unless we have those reports, it's hard for us to do that transparency to help communicate that so everybody's aware of exactly what the situation is. So I think that's another point to this is when we're getting these monthly reports, Ms. Gagliano, you can be able to help to clarify these things, to say, okay, well, yeah, you're looking at that number, but it's really this number. And I think I've said before, because of that, because there can be some confusion, I would urge staff again, you've got to be ready for every single meeting to know what our current fund balance is. I mean, that should be just, for me, should be a given before you even show up at any meeting, whether it's a board meeting or a county commission meeting, because you're going to get asked that. Somebody's going to ask that. And so unless you're prepared and ready to go, then that's where the confusion can start sometimes. If we're like, well, I'm not 100% sure, I'll have to get back to you, then that loses some trust and reliability. Where if people are on top of things and they say, hey, I've already studied that before I even got to the meeting, bam, 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 this is what the number is, that builds that trust and reliability. So that, and I think that's what we want as a board.
I agree with you, Mr. Bates, but when I write the check for my house payment, the bank may say it's still in there, but I don't, because I've already taken out of my checkbook.
Well, I've given you accurate monthly reports ever since I got here. And like I said, at the end of the year with that payroll, we'll have it hit back previous month. And for all the adjustments that are happening from the audit perspective, from the accounting perspective of making entries, I gave you my best idea of what you had in fund balance before those unknowns hit. And my goal was to give accurate information, and until I can give you accurate information, I wasn't going to give you numbers that you made a decision on and then they changed. So it's my intent that once we get this caught up, that the reports will continue the way they did regularly every month since I got here. And if there is additional information that you would like to see, or you would like it in a different format, or less information, or more explanation, then if you share that with me, I will be sure to get that for you.
Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. I think earlier Dr. Marzak, he made the statement that he would provide a plan on how he can make sure that this wouldn't happen again next year. So once he provides our plan, everything that Mr. Moore and Ms. Kendra has asked for should be in this plan. And so if we could get a preliminary copy of the plan in the next month, you know, I think this would help out a whole lot to make sure that we can get this resolved.
All right, well, seeing no other lights on, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, which would be budget amendments. I know there was discussion at our board work session about not having financials and whether or not people were going to feel comfortable voting on budget amendments and voting on these expenditures. I know there's been some discussion from Ms. Gagliano with regards to, we're not spending out of fund balance on this, but.
This one is for Fund 178, and this is for some funding that you previously had for a project, an energy audit project, and the funds were sitting left in Fund 178, that's separate from the general fund, and this budget amendment merely pulls those funds that were intended for the energy audit out to be used for the tail end of whatever that project was. So this is separate from the general fund.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Moore to approve that. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Beaver. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion did pass. So we'll move on to an estimated fiscal year CTE reserve grant budget. Any discussion on that? Or actually, do we have a motion? Motion to approve the estimated budget by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion does pass. Moving on, Title 2A, fiscal year 2018 correction. Do we have a motion related to that? The budget amendment? All right, motion to approve the budget amendment attached to that by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion on that item? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion does pass. And we have taken care of the items related to policy under our consent agenda, and then zoning and facilities. We've also addressed either via consent or FYI. We'll move on to other business, but we're going to have a request to take a 5-minute break. So we'll take a break for a minute. $10,000. We have several that we talked about at our board meeting, our board work session, but needed some more information on. First one is West Interactive Services School Messenger. Do we have a motion? Or any discussion on any?
Motion to approve.
All right. Motion by Mr. Pennings, second by Mr. Moore. Any discussion on that?
I just have a general comment or question or whatever you want to on all of these from here down. Are all of these part of our general purpose budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, which we said we didn't want to approve until we saw financials, right? So, but these are all in the budget, all of these.
Yes, ma'am. And things that we brought to the budget, and these were things that were not cut. So that's part of the email that was sent out Friday from Ms. Gagliano from me forwarded on, saying that it is okay to purchase these because monies to purchase these things, as stated on the board agenda, are in the budget. Yes, ma'am.
All right, seeing no other lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 9-2. Moving on, bid number 19-006. Do we have a motion? Motion from Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings or Mr. Atkinson. This is the CTE Culleoka Unit School Project Lead the Way equipment. Ms. Powers?
How many children are participating in this program?
I'd have to get back to you with the number exactly, Ms. Powers. Ms. Brown could not be here tonight.
All right. Any other questions relating to this item? All right. Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All All right, that motion passes 8-3. Moving on, CTE equipment for ag program at Santa Fe. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Atkinson. Did you get that, Ms. Shirley? Ms. Bowers?
How many people participate in this program?
We'll get that information to you as well. I'm writing down, making notes.
You know, we just ask that we show up for meetings prepared with answers that we might need. So I'm a little disappointed that we can't get answers to our questions.
Seeing no lights, no further discussion on this, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
Your vote's not showing. All right, that motion passes 8-3. Moving on, bid 19-009, special education contracted services. Do we have a motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings? Any discussion? Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 10-1. Move on to bid number 19-010. Contract renewal for Ames Webb. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion? Ms. Kinzer?
Well, will you tell us about this again? Give us some information about it.
Yes, ma'am. This is the kind of the state mandated software that we have for determining which students go into response to intervention and instruction. The state mandates that you have to use a tool, and Ames Webb is one of the ones on the approved list.
Any other discussion? All right. Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 10-1. Next, we have bid number 19-11. Title 2A, purchase for professional development. Motion by Mr. Atkinson. Motion for approval by Mr. Atkinson. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Morency. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 10 to 1. We'll move on to bid number 19-012, Edgenuity contract renewal. I believe this is our credit recovery software. Motion by Mr. Atkinson. Second by Ms. Morency. Mr. Moore.
I would just ask it in the future on ones like this, if we could have this as part of a broader discussion of what we're actually, not just the renewal of the service, but what we're using. I don't know if that makes sense, but in the context of what is the proper approach for our students, not just we've got a contract coming up or this is a renewal and we need to do it again, if that makes sense. I would rather kind of have a broader discussion about this is the approach we're trying to use, this software or this service meets that approach, and that's the one we're going with. If we could have that in the future, I guess next year or whenever it comes back up.
Mr. Bates.
And so this is this for how long? How long does this get us at this price for this Edgenuity?
To my understanding, that's a 1-year subscription.
Okay. And this is something that, I guess, does the state mandate that we do this credit recovery program?
Yes, we have to have a vehicle and a means by which we recover credits for high school students. That will significantly impact our graduation rates if we don't. Correct.
And approximately how many students are we looking at, do you think, on an annual basis?
I didn't have a number on that. Yeah.
Edgenuity is used not only for credit recovery, it is also used for new credit. Let's say we have someone who moves into our system that took a year of Latin, and the school that they're enrolled at does not teach Latin, then we do have courses available on here with online teachers provided by Edgenuity where that student can get that credit. Currently, total enrollment in the county is 4,368 kids using this for different purposes. Not only credit recovery, it's used in blended learning. Teachers are using it bits and pieces in their classrooms. Virtual labs, let's say you don't have a chemistry lab, there are virtual labs on there, so it's used for that. It's also used for enrichment. It's used for advancement, and we're using it in some schools in RTI because it has the MyPath component. You can test students and then have them work up to their grade level. We use it extensively here at Horace O. Porter, not only at Northfield, but in the alternative school. And we have seen gains in students' reading levels where kids have jumped 2 and 3 grade levels in a school year using this program.
Some of those other uses, I guess, is that just because we have those abilities, we're just trying to maximize
Yes.
that use? But as far as like, it's what, no ifs, ands, or buts, we have to have the credit recovery.
We have to have something for credit recovery, and this is the option that we chose a year ago.
Okay.
And, but there's more available on it to use for all these other things while we have it.
Gotcha. As far as the utilization of the credit recovery, about how many students do we have to,
That's total usage. Give me just a second, I can tell you. Right now, it looks like about 3,000, a little over 3,000 are using it in the credit recovery side. And that is for, that
y'all
is used,
probably-
not just high school, but this is used in middle school and high school.
and y'all, and I'm sure y'all have explained this before, and I apologize, but so when is it that a student has to use a credit recovery program?
When they fail a course and score at least a 50.
So we got about 3,000 of those on an annual basis?
Some kids are taking multiple courses, but some kids are, if they're close to failing, then we put them in there to keep them from failing. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like they haven't completely failed yet, so let's try to catch it before they do.
Now, as far as like this particular bid, could we is there like a menu selection where we could say, okay, what if we just want to focus on these are the things we've got to have as far as like the credit recovery, and we pared this bid down? Would we have that flexibility, or is it
What we've
just-
purchased is the credit recovery. The other stuff we are just using.
Okay, so there's no way where you can
And we
call
ha-
up
you have to
them
have
and say,
ex-
hey, I just want your main program. What is that bottom price? We don't think there's any flexibility in that?
The thing with the bidding on this is, they put in there certain amounts of those online that we have access to all year. So if a student, and like I said, needs the Latin and we don't have it at that school, then it doesn't cost us any more to put the kid, and they have a teacher from there who's online with them teaching them the Latin.
Okay. But you're saying, so there is any flexibility, like where if we wanted to go back to them and say, guys, we just want the basic, we don't want the bells and whistles.
I think that's where we are.
Okay, all right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Address first-time credit?
Yes, if a student needs a first-time credit, initial credit in a subject, if, we have a kid who, comes into the county and maybe they've had, or they need a course, and let's say you're at Santa Fe or Hampshire or Culleoka, where you don't have the flexibility in the schedule because there's only one teacher that teaches this class, and it's offered this one time, and maybe it's offered the same time as senior English, and you've got to pick and choose which one am I going to do, but you need both to graduate, then that's where this comes in too. So the kid doesn't have to delay a year of graduation. We can get them an initial credit where they can go ahead and meet the graduation requirements. Otherwise, the kid doesn't graduate.
Ms. Powers?
I just want to be sure that I'm wrapping my mind around this, because our mission statement is educate every child for life. And so if we have 12,000 plus students, so we'll just say 12,000, and you're saying 3,000 kids are using this, that's a quarter of our population in middle school and high school that are using this, a quarter. Yet, a quarter of our kids, if you take out elementary school, really, the percentage of eligible kids for this is really quite high. So we're spending $220,000 focused on the kids that are failing or close to failing, and I understand that, and we need to serve them because that's part of every child. But I just, our community keys are that all kids are reading and doing math on grade level by 3rd or 4th grade, yet we're not putting large sums of money into the curriculum for those kids. So like as the board, I just have to speak to that this is really perplexing to me. 3,000 kids that are failing in middle and high school? That's a quarter of our total population. But we're not serving well the kids to keep them on track for the goals that we've set. Thank you for giving us accurate information. I appreciate you stepping up, but I hope that the board can see that, that's distorted, and I'm very perplexed.
Mr. Atkinson, did you? Okay. Mr. Gaines, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know that you might remember what we had before Edgenuity, because I know that we had that before Dr. Woodard was here. I know we had Play-Doh, and I know the cost on it was a lot less than this. Do you recall? I was thinking it was at least less than $100,000.
At the time, it was, but we were dealing with a 3-year renewal price, so they lowered the price for the 3-year contract.
Okay.
So it would have been somewhere around $100,000. And we had really, you're kind of, if you go for, as you said, to try to look at, we're only going to take the students that fail, well, it's hard to predict when students are going to fail. And if you contract for a certain number, let's just say we go for 60 licenses. Well, if we have 61 kids that fail, we're going to have to take somebody out to put somebody in. And typically a company would then give you a per student license price, which is, it's hard for us to manage like that. So when we look at these vendors, we try to look at, one, we do try to look at price, and then we also try to look at what else they're giving us. And in addition to the students that are using it actually for credit recovery, what are some other things that we'll be able to do? Like, foreign languages, those things like that, maybe we don't have teachers to do that. Well, with that software, we're able to access that curriculum. So, it is middle high school focus. So That is about half of our population, so we're able to serve all those kids because we buy site licenses. Any kid can use it then. Whereas the Adminum was strictly kind of a high school only software.
Okay.
We had.
Is there the potential, though, to bid this out to other potential vendors besides those two?
Yeah.
And see what our options are?
I think we try to look at, we try to use something for 3 years so you can kind of get some results, and then we'd come back and rebid it out again to look at, what's the best price. And that's kind of where we were when we got to Adminum. We were looking at, what could we do differently.
Okay.
We had, because originally when Plato came on, we were kind of one of the pilot systems, so they gave us a lot of the middle school content, so we were using a lot of the old content. The Adminum part of it was the new, more aligned to the standards. That's what we were paying for in the high school.
Thank you. Mr. Bates?
I was just going to ask Mr. Gaines, so is it too late for us to explore other options, or is this something we've got to have now in order to have the service for our students? Another thing I was going to ask, is this general purpose funds, or is this like federal grant money?
This is through GP, Mr. Bates. We have students who are currently working in Ingenuity now. And so we've actually, we're past our renewal time. The company has been gracious enough to keep us on. But if they were to cut us off, then we'd lose all access and availability. And again, we just passed our budget. So I think we do want to stay with them. What we discussed amongst high school principals is looking at this program for 2 years. And then this is going to be at the end of this year, we're going to talk about whether or not we want to stay with this platform. Chair Powers, one of the things that you mentioned was looking at other vehicles. We have looked at others. There's a company called Odyssey that provides a similar service. And it is, they have given us a price quote of around $167,000 or so. But again, we just received that in the summer. So perhaps we'll look at what they do and functionality as well. I think there's one more component that we did not address, and I think that's the, and Ms. McWilliams can address that. I think it's the NCAA. Is there an NCAA? There's an NCAA requirement in this, and I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that Edgenuity courses will be accepted. Am I correct in that? Yes. That was one of the things that Edgenuity has gotten the clearance for NCAA for students who need to remediate a course. The NCAA, if you have an athlete that remediates a course, then they can take it in Edgenuity, and they will accept that credit. Typically, the NCAA does not. They look at those kinds of things very closely. They look at your transcript really closely to see if you have any courses that you failed and things like that. And they will not accept certain types of remediation, but they will, as I understand, accept credits that are completed in Edgenuity. So that's another bonus to this platform.
But as far as the timing of things, is it something you all are pretty well using about the same amount throughout the year, or is it more like towards the end of the year as you're getting closer to graduation? That's when
it's
really
all year. You have kids at various grade levels making up credits, throughout the year.
Dr. Willard, did I hear you say we were past the renewal time?
Yes, sir, it's correct. It would have been end of July.
My next question is why?
Respectfully, Mr. Pennings, I brought all the contracts to the board back in April, and we discussed them 6 times, every contract.
And we were still...
Until we just recently passed the budget, but we've discussed a lot of these contracts multiple times.
So we were held up because we were still passing the budget, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, seeing no lights, we're ready to vote on this. All right, that motion passes 8-3. We'll move on to bid number 19-013. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion on this? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 10-1. We'll move on to contract renewals. There were two, bid number 18-004, solid waste disposal, and bid number 18-006, HVAC filter replacement. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote. Mr. Moore made the motion and then made the second.
Please vote.
Make sure you're under item 9.2, operations low bids is where it'll be open at. All right, that motion did pass. We'll move on to renewal of bid 14-030. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion? 14-9.22. Ms. Powers?
Do we already have a motion in the second one?
We do have a motion. The motion was by Mr. Moore and the second was by Mr. Pennings.
So are we going back to what we had before parallel? Is that what this is? So it's exactly the same? It is. So is parallel here through the end of August? Is that what it is? Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
All right, that motion passes 10-1. We'll move on to bid number 19-004, copy paper. Motion by Mr. Moore. Second by Ms. Kinzer. Any discussion of that? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote.
Kinzer, do you want to record your vote to Ms. Shirley? It's not showing. Will you mark Ms. Kinzer as a yes? There we go. And that motion does pass. So we are now down to the FYI items. There any questions, comments on any of those? Mr. Dudley.
Well, I'd just like to tell the board members it's been a pleasure serving with them for the past at least 4 years, I think. And thank you for your patience and your efforts. And I certainly hope that if you have any weak moments and want to put your name on the ballot again, I hope you have success in coming back to the board. But thanks for all your hard work.
I too would like to thank you, and I think that a word that describes all three of them, even though maybe their focus and their the way in which they present themselves or whatever that makes them individually themselves, I think that word is passion, and I think that they have shown and exhibited a great passion for Murray County schools. And I know, sitting next to this lady, that the first day that I had to sit at this very end down here, she came in and she said, "Don't worry, I'll always have food." And so far, she hadn't let me down. But she also is something, I'd say that because she's my buddy right here, and I appreciate the fact that she's helped me make sure I know when to vote and all those sort of things. But I also think that she has a way of saying things that makes it really clear and understood where we are. And I know that when we were in the budget meeting, and maybe you all didn't know this, and she said, "Now, I'm not going to say anything at this meeting." She says that all the time. But so I sat here, and we were just kind of in such of an impasse, and I said, "Joanna, you need to say something, because when you say something, they listen." And do you remember what she said? She talked about her car in the garage and how much it costs to do, and that was just such a great analogy, and it made us all go, you're right, that's exactly right. If we can't afford it, we don't need to do it. And I feel the same about Ms. Powers with her passion, and I look over there and know that she's just really on top of everything. I appreciate that. And Mr. Bates, I understand fully the pennies that we gave away last year, and I appreciate the fact that we got some back. And I think maybe the fact that you kept reminding us of that and reminding us of where we were and what that cost us in doing that it made us fully appreciate the fact that we got some back this year. And I thank you for that.
I just want to thank all three board members who may not have always agreed, but I know in my heart that your hearts were always in the right place and your head was always in the right place fighting for the students. And as a board member and a grandparent, I truly appreciate that from all three of you. Thank you.
Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to just ditto everything that everyone else has said here tonight about these three board members, because I think they've done an excellent job, and I think their heart's always been in the right place. And I'd just like to thank them for the last 4 years.
Well, Mr. Dudley, my wife said if I ran again, she was going to vote against me. So if we ever sign up again, you might want to check with our physicians, maybe want to get us checked out a little bit. But it has been a joy working with everyone on this board. I will say one of the things, this is like a real good reward for tonight. Maybe you all done this, that we are finishing before 9 o'clock tonight. So I'm not going to keep you all. But it has been a joy working with everyone. And Ms. Kinzer, keep working on them. Maybe we can give more of their pennies back. So they got more to give. So just keep on them. So, all right, thank you.
I'm not gonna say anything. That's my disclaimer. This is surreal. I can't even believe this day has come to where 4 years, and I remember voting for myself, and remember the first meeting. I remember our retreat, and Kim saying, "I need to get a picture for the." For the page, and I said, no, not today, because my hair is not done. And I remember from that point on, we've all had such great interactions, and I will remember each one of those things, like that story. And it's just been a blessing to have the opportunity to work with you all and to do something like this. And it seems like, how did the 4 years come so quickly? Because I just remember us all sitting up here for the first time, and it was just yesterday, and we're here. So I'm going to miss you all greatly. I got your cell phone numbers. I'm going to run to the door when we dismiss. But I just thank God for the opportunity, because to be a part of something that is impactful to education, which is something I'm passionate about, and to be impactful to the children and the families of our community, and to be a support for teachers and administrators and our leadership for Maury County has been an ultimate opportunity. We all have learned so much, probably more than we signed up for. And we have experienced so many things, but as a group, I'm just grateful that we had such a privilege to make some great change in our community and do some wonderful things. And we know that with the people that are still here, you guys will continue to make those great things happen for the community. So I just thank y'all for being my seatmates and being people that we were in this thing together with. And so thank you for the opportunity, and I just appreciate y'all individually and collectively, and definitely for the experience.
I do want to thank everyone that I've served with, and the last few meetings, I think we've come back together and worked a little more harmoniously and somewhat unanimously, so I'm glad to say that we're ending on a high note. I was reflecting with a board member earlier about the time that we put in when it was time to interview for superintendents, and we kind of counted up on hours for those of you that we were here. I would say we spent easily 40 hours. And you know what? We did good work. We asked great questions. We received good answers. So now that the board has been coming back together, and as y'all welcome new board members, I hope that y'all will continue to work together and recall that board governance requires us to hold people accountable. So I will be cheering for you all from somewhere besides this room. But please continue to work together, and please remember our responsibilities to educate all kids for life.
Would any retiring board member like to make the motion to adjourn? I will. Motion by Ms. Powers. All those in favor say aye.